Hey everyone, it's the Snaky back again with another video, and I'm kind of just prefacing this video before we start going into benchmarks and things, talking about my brand new RTX 4080. There she is in all her glory with 3 power connectors. Yeah, and also there's this nice light bar which is an anti-sag bracket because I got this from KFA 2, which is Galax in America. Extremely happy with it. This comes with RGB on both the graphics card, obviously enough, and the anti-sag bracket, which can be controlled by the motherboard, but my motherboard doesn't have ARGB. Instead it has JRGB, which is some other standard, and I have an RGB converter that can actually convert these two, but it doesn't bring over rainbow effects and stuff like that. But anyways, I found an easier way to do this. What I did was I just connected it to the daisy chain connector for RGB on my Fantex P400A case, and now, as you can see, the solid green is matched up with everything. There's not a huge amount of RGB in the case, guys. I know some people say there's lots of shadows in there and doesn't look as lit up as it should. I'm happy with it. I want a black and green aesthetic, and that is what I've gotten, and it looks better in person than it does in the video. Also, if I just bring you a little bit closer, you'll hear that even though I'm not playing a game now, that zero coil whine with this card. Absolutely zero coil whine. I have tested this in 2000 frame scenarios where, like, when it's moving between the Haven benchmark, it's loading a new area, or you're going into the high, 300s, 400s in certain scenarios. No coil whine whatsoever. No hiss, no screeching, none of that. This is completely devoid of coil whine and is a big change from my 6800 XT, which I know a lot of people will shrug and roll their eyes and say it's an unnecessary upgrade. But I did it. PC gaming is a big hobby of mine. It always has been, even though I took a bit of a break away from it. So I said, look, why not? It's I wanted to treat myself. And also, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to sell my 6800 XT for a decent price on the second hand, so I'll recoup some of the money. So overall, a really, really worthwhile purchase, especially just alone for the coil whine. Even though it did get a lot better after my video I talked about, it still was there if you were listening for it, but those tips that I have in the video that I'll link now, or try and link on the screen, if you are experiencing coil whine, you want to make it a lot better to the point where it's tolerable, watch my video there. But look, it's a lottery. I would recommend the KFA 2 cards possibly, but I know that the RTX 4080, from reading online, seems to be not devoid of coil whine, but seems to be, it doesn't seem to be very common. I'll put it that way. But check out my video if you do want to know how to reduce coil whine or help out a little bit with undervolting and things like that. So that's pretty much the beginning of the video, guys. We're going to jump into some benchmarks. I'm just going to finish off by showing you my charity shop ninja, who I created in Cyberpunk when it came out first, and have just started playing it again because of the RTX effects. And here's the gorgeous RTX scene that I captured him behind. You can see there all the lovely overdrive ray tracing, or whatever the hell it's called. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a while. But yeah, sit back, guys, relax, and let's talk a little bit about the sort of performance you're going to get from something along the lines of this RTX 4080 combined with, of course, my 5800 X3D CPU. So starting off with Dead Island 2, as well as the 4080 and the 5800 X3D, we've also got 32 gigs of 3200 MHz CL16 RAM. And overall, the game runs really, really well. This is a fairly well optimized game, but it's also a game that I think is weighted a little bit more towards AMD GPUs. I say that for 2 reasons. Number one, obviously it doesn't offer DLSS as an upscaling option. And also the performance, it's probably the game that I've noticed the least performance uplift out of all of the titles that I'm playing. And that would lead me to believe that it is weighted more towards the AMD GPUs. Venice Beach here is one of the more difficult areas of the game to run. The FPS tends to vary quite a bit, and also there's a bit of stuttering that happens here as well. Just to say that the gameplay you're seeing at the moment is maxed out at 1440p, and that's the same for all the games that you're going to see here, unless I state otherwise. And some of the titles, mainly the ray tracing titles, I'll have DLSS on as well, but just take note of that as I suppose a point of information. Next we've got Undisputed Boxing. If you're an Undisputed player, you'll expect fantastic performance, obviously, from an RTX 4080, and you're going to get it as well. This is the game maxed out again at 1440p with all the effects and everything turned to Ultra. And as you can see here, absolutely sensational results.
This game here can be graphically intensive, especially I noticed the FPS tends to go down a bit between the actual gameplay. The gameplay itself, though, as you can see here, we're easily hitting 200 frames. And the most impressive thing here you'll see with the 4080, whether this is just the KFA 2 model or what, I don't know, but the temperatures. When I was playing this game on my 6800 XT, I noticed that I was on average getting around 10 degrees more than what I'm getting here. So I would be up in the mid 70s. The 6800 XT, at least the Merc 319 version that I had, definitely ran quite hot. Also as well, the fans on this, I don't notice them as much. And fantastically, probably the best part of the whole thing is that coil whine is just non-existent on this card. I haven't been able to get it to make any noise in terms of coil whine at all, which is fantastic. Next up, we've got Atomic Heart, which came out, I can't even remember now, was it last year, I think? But I've played through the entire game. This is just me towards the end of the game here, moving around. This area's got lots of foliage, and as you can see here, we're in the high 200s. No problem at all. This is at 1440p, completely maxed out, not using any sort of DLSS or FSR here. I don't think even this game supports it, I'm not sure. But yeah, as you can see, fantastic performance. Again, you know, not a massive uplift from the 6800 XT, but still, you know, when you're playing at 1440p and you're able to just notch everything up without having to worry about anything, you know, that's seriously impressive. This card does seriously drive frames. So now we start moving into the real ray tracing territory here with Cyberpunk 2077. I've maxed this game out with frame generation on, DLSS at balanced. The reason I'm using DLSS at balanced is because, as you can see here, I have the overdrive mode or path tracing turned on. Now, a few things to note here. The reason I have balanced set and not quality is because I just find the input delay from the frame generation a bit too much when I'm using the quality setting on DLSS. So I've set that to balanced, and it's much better for me. Your mileage may vary. You may be a lot more you know, are not as sensitive to it, but I just like to have a kind of snappy enough feeling when I'm controlling the game, basically, even in single player games like this. As you can see here, very, very nice frames. The only thing I will say about the overdrive settings is they tend to be a bit smudgy, and they do take a little bit of time to render in, but that's apparently going to be fixed in the 2.0 update that's coming out in a week's time. So just bear in mind, performance may have improved slightly, and the look of the reflections in the overdrive mode will also have improved as well. When it does come out. In terms of 6800 XT, this is not able to run the path tracing mode at all, and it even struggled a little bit with the standard ray tracing. You could set ray tracing to like medium, but you'd have to make sure that you had FSR on balanced. So overall, a big jump here in terms of performance, especially when you want to use those ray tracing effects. Finally, we have Portal RTX, which, to be honest with you, I wasn't going to include on this list because it is an ultimate flex game. This is just to say, well, I can play Portal RTX. But I have to say, I enjoy playing through the game again. It's been years since I finished it for the first time. And your footage you're seeing here is from one of the more intensive chambers in the game. We're easily hitting that 100 FPS mark. Again, with some slight dips just below. But you can see the lovely effects there through the portal with the shadows. But yeah, you can see the settings here. I have everything on Ultra, or with the Ultra preset. And I've set DLSS to balanced with frame generation on. And this is a perfectly acceptable way to play the game. And as you can see, temperatures are still staying nice and cool there. So to finish off today's video, I took some footage here from this part of Cyberpunk, which I think shows off the path tracing effects really nicely. And I want to answer the question that I'm sure all of you are wondering. Is it worth getting a card like an RTX 4080 from a manufacturer like KFA 2 or Galax, which have been considered, you know, on the cheaper end? And I would say absolutely yes. I mean, for €300 I've saved here in comparison to other manufacturers, I see absolutely no downsides. I got an anti-sag bracket that has that LED. You can always turn that off if you want. The card is really quiet. Fan noise is not intrusive at all. And probably one of the best things is I've gone from having a very noticeable coil whine on my last card, which I did manage to bring down a bit with some undervolting and some changes that I made to the case, but still it being quite noticeable, to absolutely no coil whine with this card, which is just, you know, really a breath of fresh air when you're playing without headphones. And I think all those things added up together just makes this card fantastic value. And is it a worthwhile upgrade going from something like a 6800 XT to an RTX 4080? I suppose that depends on your use cases. Definitely rasterization wise, this card is much faster, but also in terms of ray tracing, it just pulls ahead even further. The 6800 XT wasn't really capable at all in terms of ray tracing. I mean, I could play this at medium, but I'd have to make sure that FSR was unbalanced. So if you like the ray tracing effects, you want the ray tracing effects, and you also want the productivity features that NVIDIA offers, I think really that, you know, it's, I won't say a no-brainer, but it definitely is an upgrade that you could stomach. So that's pretty much been the video, guys. If you enjoyed this sort of video and you want to see more videos from the RTX 4080, there's a lot more content coming out soon for Cyberpunk. So if you want to see me maybe test out the new DLSS 3.5, you know, let me know in the comments down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.